America, and welcome to Invent America, because America invents.
This episode of Invent America TV is brought to you by America's Inventor Lady and Home Talk USA. Home Talk is a proud member of the King's Broadcasting Network and has been bringing to you the best of America's home-based product innovation since 1998. This segment of Invent America TV is brought to you by the law offices of R.P. Baraska. RPB law offices have been bringing corporate-level legal expertise to the independent inventor community for more than 20 years. For all your inventing legal needs, trust rpblawoffices.com.
Welcome, America. That's right. This is the Invent America show here on Invent America Radio on the King's Broadcasting Network. I want to welcome all of you to the very best in home improvement information education, Invent America education, and obviously Made in America education right here on one channel. We want to welcome some of our great affiliates each week, every week. We can't forget about that big station in Owensboro, Kentucky, WOMI 1490 AM, also simulcast on 99.1 FM in the Kentucky mountains out there. And I want to welcome all of you. And it's so great to have my next host back. We kind of missed her last week, the inventor lady herself, Miss Rita Crompton. That was really covering the ASD Market Week show in Las Vegas. She's back behind in the studio, and I'd like to welcome her now back. So we could kind of get her slow into it. You know what I mean? But Rita, how you doing?
Just fine. Still recovering from being out in Las Vegas for a week and getting everything, done and headed in the right direction.
Well, tell us about the show. Let's talk about that a little bit. It's a show that you've been doing now for the last, I think, 3 years now. And it's a show that's really gaining some traction out there in Vegas because it's really a multi-purpose show, right? Has a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, they're trying to become more of an innovative show, new products. Buyers know what's old. They've been tagged with being a buyout, sellout. And they're trying to, revamp their own personality as far as the show goes. So we were in 1,000 square feet right by the badge pickup area, which was kind of cool. And, but then we were also by a lot of the closeout areas. So sometimes that was a little bit, unfortunate, but being next to badge pickup, everybody's got to walk by you. So that's a good sign. And, it was busy getting set up, always is. 1,000 square feet, 25 products. Holy cow, we work like crazy. And then everybody, gets to show off and do their thing and talk to people. And that's the good thing. But other folks know we're there. So they come by and, show us what they've got.
Well, I know you're focusing on your clients, to give them that exposure that they need, but it's a big show with a lot of technology. And I know you probably took some time, maybe walked the floor, had anything out there that kind of, I don't know, that got your attention that maybe we need to know about. Maybe it might be a technology of the future or something, or maybe a client that you probably picked up there, to say, hey, we got to get this on the market or something. Can you give us an update?
Oh, there were some fun things out there and new products, but nothing I'd throw into the category of technology. It's a consumer product show. So there were, kitchen gadgets, fun gadgets, promotional products, and things that would be in all arenas of our life, from new types of Kleenex boxes to the really cool new product that my guest is going to be talking about. Wow. And, some of them might fall into the category of technology, but I think that most professionals would say, kitchen gadget, car thing, as opposed to what we officially classify as technology.
Yeah. Well, also the reason I was asking, because I haven't had a chance to go out. I mean, AI is really taking over mainstream news, radio, broadcasting. It's AI. And, sitting behind the master control here, I don't get to see any feedback on that a little bit. Of course, maybe the technology or the household goods, maybe are not to that stage yet, or maybe it might be. I don't know. I'd like
You
to
know,
find out, you know?
I guess it depends on your point of view because,
Yeah.
we had a lady out there with, she's a nurse and she had a new pacifier that teaches a preemie baby how to suck. Well, premature
Yeah.
babies are at risk, and she had
Yeah.
just a phenomenal product out
Wow.
there.
Wow.
And it's not a matter of how many people are interested; it's a matter of finding the one who is interested. And so she'll be offered a licensing deal next week. And it's fascinating to watch some of these products that save lives. We had another gentleman on. I'm going to get him on the radio. That okay, technology. He had a
Yeah.
combination of an airline escape hatch to put on a 4 or 5-story building that would save lives. That
Wow.
when there's a fire or an emergency in a shorter high rise, 3, 4, 5 floors, you'd go to the door, you punch a button, and the chute flies out. So very
Wow.
similar to what's on airplanes, but yeah, that would be a technology that's going to save lives. And where you've got those rickety stairs that go up, and people can break into a building, no more, because there's no stairs from the street up to
Yeah.
these lower floors. And you just something's happening. There is leave the building now. They go out, they punch a button, they slide down a chute. And
Wow.
so more people faster out, safer out, because there's not rickety stairs anymore. Very
Wow.
cool product. He's out of New York. And so we're going to get him on the show again, just to talk about his very cool technology.
Well, I can't even imagine that decision you have to make, up until this, till you just told us, do I jump or do I burn? I mean, I can't even comprehend that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I don't know what
absolutely.
I would do. I don't know what I would do. I really don't know,
And the fact that so many of these buildings now are being broken into and they're at
Oh,
risk,
yeah.
or the stairs get rickety, they
Yeah.
get rusty, and you've got older people trying to get down. Now they do just like on an airplane. They
Yeah.
jump in a chute, they slide down, more people, faster, safer, easier. I mean, the
Yeah.
whole thing is easier. And so very cool technology. And I was really proud of him that he was
Yeah.
there with us and showing off. So, was his a consumer product? No, but he wanted to show people. He wanted to start getting feedback. And so we'll work at licensing his product as well. But, just some of those really interesting pieces
Yeah.
that were out there. And, we've learned that artificial intelligence is pretty artificial. You,
Yeah.
at some point it can be very helpful, but at another point it's really stupid. It's only as, intelligent as the person putting in the programming. And sometimes it can be really crazy. So you've got to use it in reserve, I guess is my point.
What's about James Webb's, our guest coming up? I know we're excited to have him because he's exploring into different products, right?
Well, he is this gentleman. I've seen him at many shows. He'll come up and say, "Hey, Rita, how you doing?" and stuff. So I recognized him when he was coming. Very cool new product, but he has got multiple products in the marketplace already. This guy is
Wow.
a professional inventor, writer and artist, and just very, very entertaining and very different products that he's already got launched. So
Wow.
it'll be fun to talk to him and have him tell us about his process and his steps.
Just for my curiosity, is most of his products licensed or manufactured by him? I mean, most of them, he looks for license deals, just for my
He looks
audience to
for
know.
he looks for some. So most of them are, he gets it teed up because he has got probably 15 products that are in the marketplace.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So he is a master inventor.
15 and counting.
You betcha. Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Wow. I'm excited to hear from him because, man, that's what this show's all about, bringing guys that's been through the stages and then educate in them stages to bring the young inventors to market. I mean, it's the more information we have, the less mistakes you're going to make. That's the bottom line, right, Rita?
Absolutely. And the company that wants to license his product figures he'll be a multi-million-dollar product in, a short amount of time. We're talking in maybe a year or two, and that this has just got a huge. And some of the guys that I met last year at ASD Market Week that were in the NFL with the logos and everything, we took them over so they could meet him, and they loved his product. It's like, how fast
Wow.
can we get inventory? So a lot of the times, you meet the right people and you talk to them and you can make a deal.
All right, Rita, we got to take a short break. We're going to come back right here on the King's Broadcasting Network. This is the Invent America Show. because Invent America, because America invents. That's kind of a tongue twister. You know that, right? Trying to say it
A little bit, a little
yeah,
bit.
it's kind of rough there, but right here on the King's Broadcasting Network and on the Invent America Radio Network, we want you to stay tuned with our first guest. It will be up right here. So we're excited to have him. Always support your local independent hardware stores and garden centers, and let's pledge to hire vet today. We're going to be right back. Yay! I'll come back now. You hear?
This segment of Invent America TV is brought to you by SearchQuest Patent Search. SearchQuest provides for a comprehensive patent search that searches the entire world and not just the U.S. Patent Office. Make sure that before you spend those big bucks having a patent written, you've done your due diligence by getting a comprehensive patent search. Use SearchQuestPatents.com for all your patent search needs. They scour the world for you.
And my guest right now is James. I have no idea what his legal last name is because he goes by James Creation because he creates the most interesting products. So, James, I want you to tell people about yourself, as a professional inventor, because when you've got that many inventions, you are a professional inventor. What does that mean to you?
That's a big question, Rita. I guess it means because that's always been since the beginning. I wouldn't say a passion, but it's more of something that's inside you that you really can't explain, that you just do. It's like a frog jumps, a rabbit runs, a butterfly flies. It's like I just invent and create. So
I know when I
help it.
When I said, so how many products do you have in the marketplace? I was figuring 4 or 5, because you've told me about some of them. When you sent me the list, it's like, okay, holy cow. I did have this gentleman tagged right as a professional inventor. So what are the things, what are the process you go through? It's like, all right, 2:30 in the morning, you're like, oh, aha. And you figure out, you write it down and then you start working on it. What does professional inventor mean?
It means that your job is to create and to execute. About coming up with ideas, I guess because I look at things different, I see the gap between things. So between a brush and a lawnmower, I might see the gap to bring something together. And then if I see that gap, then I'm like, oh, the aha. So then I do the ideation process. I start to sketch it out and I say, okay, that's going to work. And then how does it work? So I got to make it, see how it's going to work, how it's going to function in the real world. The ergonomics, does it fit what my ideas of how it's going to play out, how it's going to function? And then from those things, the idea becomes to fruition.
All right. So
basic process.
You live in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And, were you born there?
No, I was actually born in California, but my mom and dad, they came here when I was very young. So I grew up here. And then, of course, back and forth, California, other places for inventions.
There you go.
Business.
So at what, you're creative, but at what point in your growing up did you think, okay, I'm an inventor?
Well, I was always tinkering with stuff, around the house, taking apart toys and, things that I would get and putting them back together, fascinated how things would work. But my real passion in the beginning, because I could draw from a very young age. I don't know what happened.
You're still on.
Oh, okay. I could draw from a really young age. So it was obvious that, I had talent in art. So that was more of the goal in the beginning, to go to either work for Disney or Marvel or one of the top, comic companies, publishers. And so that was the main goal. But through that, I was always fascinated with Bugs Bunny and all the other cartoons, how, the Wile E. Coyote would invent all these things. So it was kind of like an intricate, involvement of how these things would be, made. And I was fascinated with the little toys and the cereal boxes and, just a curiosity and interest of things like that. And so I guess just a progression of interest and talent you might say, like, oh, let me make this, from fixing stuff. It kind of just developed that way, and always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I just always felt like I wanted to do something outside the 9 to 5. So
There
those
you
kind of
go.
things drove me as well.
So, how many inventions have you come up with over the years?
Oh, well, on the market, I've got like, including like the paper industry and the hard products. I don't know, I'd say, no, I can't even really count how many there are because I invented a lot of things in the paper industry and over the years. So, but hard products, I would say I have like 5 inventions, 5 real solid hard products out there. And yeah,
When
one is coming out this year. So I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, so are we.
Yeah. Well, I got a game coming out this year. It's called Smack Out. So it's really fun, really exciting, an all family game, and it took 4 years to get to this point. So that's another big question you may want to know about other our inventors may want to know. It's not an easy road.
No, I was going
You
to
know
ask.
that.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're going through, at what point do you're working on an idea, you've got, you've had an aha moment, and you say, nope, this is not going to work, and you let it go and you move on to your next one.
It's so funny because I've been very, I don't know, fortunate. I won't say luck because, luck is fictitious, but I've been fortunate in that the only thing that has happened to me is I've come up with an idea that I thought was really good, and it was really good. And then I did a patent search and I found out there was 6 patents on it. So I was like, oh, wow. Like, how can I go to a company and say, here, this is, my invention. There's 6 patents on it. Just very similar to this. I abandoned those because I'm like, no, I'm not gonna try to get in there and, because mine has a fraction of a difference. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And that good business call on that one.
Yeah.
I've seen other inventors that say, well, I changed it a little bit. No,
Right.
no.
No.
Yeah. And the idea of getting a cease and desist order is not fun.
Right. And I found that I like uniqueness. I've always strived for originality. So when I see that happen to me, and it's only happened once, and that was I was going to approach Icy. I had a really, I was contact with the CEO. I did all my, footwork. And then when I did the due diligence and I found this straw and it had 6 of the patents, and I was like, good thing I didn't pitch it to him before I found that out.
James, take a deep breath. We got to pay some bills. We're going to get you back to finish this part of the conversation
I'm excited.
in just a few seconds. So everybody stick with us. We will be right back. If you're an inventor or an inventor out there who would just like to be able to have a conversation with other inventors, join the Inventors Roundtable. It's free. The meetings are virtual, so you can be anywhere in America and talk to another inventor. And for a lot of folks out there, understanding the process, being able to ask questions, getting good service provider information is critical to the inventing process. So, got questions? Want to join? It's free. inventorsroundtable.org. And thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Invent America, because America invents. We've been doing it for centuries, and we will continue to invent products that make the consumer's life better. And this segment is brought to you by Wood & Wood. They are the trusted seamless gutter company specializing exclusively in gutters. WeNeedGutters.com. And my guest is James Creation. Love your last name, James, because it's so fitting for who you are and what you've been doing for decades. So tell everybody, what was that first round of, getting a product out there?
Well, like I said, I was always had the, creativity, and, my goal was to be an artist in a, comic industry or animation. But I always had this idea, this tendency to tinker. And I started my first company to try to print T-shirts, and I thought I was going to sell 1 million with my art, and I sold like 5. So that was had to dump that. And a trip to California, and bodyboarding. We were surfing. We were always athletic, but we just weren't that good. And I was like, we got fins for the feet, but what about the hands? I'm not getting enough power. So I just had this aha moment. And I thought about, the frog hand or the creature of the Black Lagoon. I came home, I sketched out this drawing, and my friend called me and he said, "So what are we going to do with one of your characters? We're going to make a doll?" And I said, "Nope, we're going to make a webbed fingered surfing glove." And he's like, "Okay." So we started scrambling for a prototype. We had this flimsy prototype. We packed up our stuff, quit our so-called career jobs, and moved to California. And we lived in a single room. We cut our own hair, ate steamed vegetables for months, got the gloves produced, and we started selling them up and down the coast of California out of the trunks of our cars. And they just started to explode. We started doing ads, sponsoring surfers and bodyboarders. And we got approached by one of the largest companies in sports and surfing. And they loved our product. And after about 2 years, they bought us out. And that was the beginning of the beginning. I just never looked back.
So what other you're all right, so you're in the artsy stuff. You do a lot of the drawings and everything, and then you're in the swimming industry. What are some of your other products?
Yeah, my second invention was the flying creature dragons. I invented these because I was artistic. I was drawing these, fantasy looking dragons. And actually my mom said, she goes, "Well, why don't you make one of those fly?" And so I was like, yeah. So I had this inspiration. And remember the old white gliders that have the red and blue stickers on them? So I took one of these and I just modified it, and I started making a prototype and filed for a patent. And because I was coming off of the success of web, so the door was open. So I got into one of the largest glider companies, and bada boom, bada bang, they were like, "This is awesome." And that was my second. Sold it before we went to market. And that's kind of the business plan that I've had ever since. I don't produce anything, or I haven't had to, and not that I'm against it, but going to manufacturing and marketing, that's a big step. And so my business plan has been produce it, develop it, file for the IP, and then approach a company that's in that space or an investor that wants to bring it to market. And that's been my model ever since.
And I think for most inventors, that's the route they want to go. We look at licensing so that, you develop it, you get it out there, you get some feedback, and then you approach somebody who's going to help you do the heavy lift because you're going on to your next idea.
Yeah. And, that's good for some people. Some people have a real passion for an invention, and they solve a great problem. And that may be their one hit wonder, so to speak. And they may just think that's it. That's what they want to get out there. And so they may want to produce it. They want to go that way, or they may want to approach somebody that, is in that space and produce it for them. And maybe that's all they're going to do. So it depends on what your goal is, what your life dream or drive is. And for me, it is continuing to create new things. So I'm always looking for that licensing partner to take the product and do the sales and do the marketing, collect the royalties, and I'm already on to the next 5 inventions.
Exactly. I mean, so many of the inventors, when they want to start their own company and we see them hit a wall,
Yes.
they may have, at the point where they may have sold. I mean, we had one gentleman, he had sold $1.6 million in product 2 years ago. And then he started seeing it tick down and he sold 1.1 the next. And he realized, he couldn't do anything else on his own and needed then the extra hands. And so we do see that. And then for there's other inventors, they just don't have the funding to do it. And, they're just so grateful that they're able to find then somebody that's going to license it and do the heavy lift. And for others inventors, that issue of being knocked off, the licensee is the one that fights that, then not the inventor.
Yes. And, there's many horror stories out there, where, these companies like Telebrands, they knocked off, a bunch of balloons from Josh Malone, Guru, and others, just many different companies. And it took 4 years, 24 million. And who has 24 million to fight another company? So you got to get with a good company. If you have a great product, it's always best to research and find the best company for your product, for the best support, the best distribution. And, you want to get a reliable company that's going to, pay you your royalties. I mean, even the gentleman that invented the Super Soaker, he had to sue Hasbro, years later to get, 17 million that they took from him. So it's not an easy game. It's a rough road. You got to be, where you got to learn. You got to talk to people like you who've been in the game, and, you've got to feed off of everybody. You got to be involved. And I would just say, if you have and I don't want to say passion because that's such a fleeting word, you got to have the discipline for it. If that's what you love to do, is to invent, then you got to stick with it. Like I tell all inventors and entrepreneurs, I say if you're either in the pool all the way, or if you're dipping your toe, you might as well not even try to swim because it doesn't
Exactly.
work.
And life gets in the way for everybody. It doesn't matter whether
Yes.
you've got a 9 to 5 job or you're self-employed or you're an inventor. You get
Yeah.
back on the horse. You get back on it and get
Yes.
get going again. And
Yeah.
for a lot of inventors, like, well, I want to wait till it's perfect. Oops, no such thing.
Yep.
You can always make improvements to something, and if you wait till you're perfect, that's just an excuse to not take the next step. And then there's
Mm.
others. It's that it's like, well, I'm going to wait till my patent issues. Nope, nope, nope. That shouldn't be something you wait for, because other people are solving problems, and if they beat you to market, they beat you to market, and it's really tough to claw that back.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty about provisionals. They're $140 to file for yourself. That gives you a year to present your product or develop it, and to get it exposed to somebody that may want to bring it to the market. And now the provisionals, you can even extend them. So with the USPTO, they have an extension program that you can pay a fee and extend your provisional so you still keep that date. So
Yep.
that's a good bonus that's happening. But I would also like to say diversification is the key to success. I don't care whatever business you're in. If you're a single, like you said, a one show pony, your one pony show, you're either going to have great success and you're going to go on to something else, or you're going to blow it on whatever it is you may blow it on. Who knows? Life is life. We're not perfect. Things happen. But if you diversify with me, like I like to be prolific. It's not something I really, had in mind when it happened, but it just the idea of seeing a product or the gap between products and seeing what's possible, that's my imagination. That's kind of my talent, you might say. So it can happen in different areas. Like mine was water and surf, and I did develop some other products in the water and surf area. That wasn't just the one. Out of that, developed a couple other things. But then I went to the gliders, a totally different market, toys and from surfing. And then I went into the paper industry and started, because I always want to be illustrated. I went back to art college and I started learning more about art and drawing. So that was a great passion of mine, to be an illustrator. And so out of that, not only just illustration, came paper products, paper
Yep.
engineering.
I think for a lot of inventors, when they invent in the realm they work in,
Yes.
they create a better product. And it's just like you're artistic, so you're working in that area as well. When I get somebody that has no connection to the area they are inventing in, it's like
Right.
there's a world of hurt coming, because there's usually a lot of information and technology out there. And so, paying attention. But we're going to have to go and pay some bills. We'll be right back with James. And so if you
Okay.
know anybody out there, all right, who's got an idea and wants to know the next steps, have them call me. You know what? That phone number is everywhere. They're going to etch it on the side of my casket because I'm taking it with me. Stick with us, everybody. We will be right back.
Introducing the amazing new Snoozle. It sprays faster, lasts longer. Ask for Snoozle by name.
Everyone, and thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Invent America, because America invents. So my guest is James Creation, and James has been doing this for a long time and has several products in the marketplace. James, what has been some of your hardest lessons?
I guess encountering a stubborn patent examiner. There's a thing called office actions when you file for a patent and they reject some of your claims or whatever. And I just had this one product and they were arguing the base, which was a basic thing that everybody has. So they kept arguing that it was like other things. And I had to abandon the patent after 3 office actions because I just wasn't winning the argument, and it was costing me too much money versus risk versus reward. So I had to abandon the patent and move on.
Yeah, that's too bad. I know we had an inventor who's a very dear friend of mine, and she was getting the same runaround. And so we
Right.
finally, the examiner's head was stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
And so we finally sent her a link to a video and then got on the phone with her. And she goes, "Oh my God, I had no idea this is what it was." And the patent issued then a few weeks later. So sometimes they just, they can't read your mind, and they
No.
see the drawings, they get stuck in a rut and they can't get out. And so we have found that, the phone call with the inventor and the examiner sometimes is very, very beneficial. And we've had it a couple of times since then where we've learned that, they've got to be able to see your vision. And then it's like a light bulb goes off and they think, oh, now I get it. So they didn't learn it. So,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so, what else have you learned the lesson you don't want to manufacture yourself and be the sole marketing person. That's crazy busy. What are some of, so you abandoned that patent and you moved on to your next because you were lucky enough to have another idea in the hopper.
Yes. And that's the thing, I was like, okay, it's like cut bait, it's like move on to cut bait, get out while you can, after, spending too much money, and even phone calls to the patent examiner didn't work for me. So it was just not meant to be, I guess. So yes. And I had other inventions. So I just, okay, drop that, took the funds, started, making the investment into that. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to see the market. You have to see where the direction of the patent is going or the idea is going. And you have to either say, you know what, this is not going to work, or there's nobody interested, and you've got to move on. And you have to know, and that comes a bit through experience or partnering up with somebody that knows, like the Inventor lady yourself, or people like Protoplanch. And these guys, you've got to move on to find somebody that you can, if you're not inexperienced like me, you have to find somebody who has experience so it can help you the trials and the pains and the finances that you may be able to avoid so that you can get to where you want to be quicker and without a loss of too much money.
So I got to see you in Las Vegas last week at ASD Market Week, and it was wonderful. It's like, oh yeah, there he is. So, it was a lot of fun. But what was the most interesting thing that happened to you out there at ASD?
It's interesting because I met through you. I met Mike, and so that was a huge thing, meeting him. But the interesting thing was meeting a gentleman that didn't know anything about inventions or patents, and he was just fascinated with it. And to get him to engage was very, very well. I guess it was like a great experience to meet somebody that isn't in the game but appreciates it. So sometimes that's a very positive thing, to meet somebody who loves what you're doing but knows nothing about it.
Yes, you're exactly right. The interesting thing is that, I introduced you to Mike Ryan with Pronto Launch. He introduced you then to the NFL guys.
Yes.
And he met them because I introduced him to them because I met him last year at ASD.
Exactly.
And it's always interesting the way things kind of circle around to get things done.
Well, that's when I wanted to make sure I get this across, is that being, there's this old saying about, being where you're supposed to be or being in the right circles. Well, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do according to your business or, whatever it is you're in, if you're not doing that, you're not going to be in the right place at the right time. But if you're going to the shows and the convention, like you see me all the time, because I'm going to as many shows as possible that are interested, those kind of that have products, and the licensing expo and ASD and the toy shows and all these. If you're not going to these shows and trying to find and meet people, you're not going to meet people. You're not going to meet the people you need to know. And so you can only blame yourself. You got to be active. You got to be fully active. That's what I say. You got to be fully engaged and fully active. And you got to research these things, because like some people tell me, well, how did you know about that? And I go, because I'm looking for it. If you're going to find it, you got to look for it.
That's right. And so, this one inventor, we had cool product, but he would never go to a trade show, never go and meet people, never saw anybody eye to eye. He always did, he did things. And so then when the business started falling off, he couldn't figure out why. It's because you've never gone and met anybody.
Right. And as well as I do, that all business is based on relationship. If you're not meeting the people and getting to know them, regardless of your character, if you're not a good person, but you have a great product, you might meet somebody, be able to work with them. But if you meet everybody and you got a great character, your odds are going to jump greatly to meet the right person and do the right business and get your product off the ground and, be on your way.
So as we tie up this segment,
yes,
James, what is a one-line piece of advice you've got for inventors?
Gosh, that's a big one.
20 seconds, count it down.
Do your research, make sure there's no other product like yours. Make sure you do your research and make sure it's original. Be original.
There you go. And then get yourself out there and meet people and answer your problems. So anyway, thanks everybody for being with us for this segment of Invent America.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. We will be back next week with more stories on getting products from mind to market. We will have new inventors and industry experts. So join us and have a wonderful week.